I hate the DCEU. I hated it when it first came out, I hated it on rewatch, and I hate it to this day. I hate the DCEU so much, I've already made one video on a movie in this failed cinematic universe. The DCEU always felt like a studio and a figurehead director's horrendous attempt at making epic art that just did not appeal to me. They let Zack take the reins and drive the universe, and that did not appeal to the general public. Then they let any director take a shot at a movie without a cohesive and unifying vision. Both of these attempts failed. This universe just did not have a chance with how it was run by Warner Brothers. This is all to say that I've never thought highly of these films. However, I have always given them a fair shake and have been pleasantly surprised on occasion. Shazam, Birds of Prey, and Zack Snyder's Justice League are all films I ended up enjoying. Yes, for as much as I'll dunk on Zack Snyder, I did enjoy his attempt at Justice League. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. For some reason, a movie that has always sat in the back of my mind from this universe was Wonder Woman. I remember this movie being a mixed bag, like a turd sandwich with pimento cheese on it. I even thought Gal Gadot was good as Wonder Woman. It's crazy the sort of opinions you'll have when you're young and your brain isn't fully developed. For example, my film friends in high school really liked Joss Whedon's Justice League when we saw it in theaters. Honestly, that might not be an underdeveloped brain issue. I think that's just a brain damage issue. Something's been nagging at me periodically. I occasionally just think about Wonder Woman. Questions just rack my brain. Was this movie as good as people said? Is Gal Gadot a good actress? Does Gal Gadot eat babies like a hag in a forest? I wanted to answer these questions, so I finally bit the bullet and watched and rewatched Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman. I can now truly and confidently say that Wonder Woman is worse than you remember. This movie really sucks. Not even just for its execution, but for the potential that is just oozing in this flick. Spoilers ahead for one of the most disappointing DC films to be released in the past 10 years. Fair warning ahead, everything I state from here on out is entirely fact. If you are a fan of the DCEU, I hate you specifically. At least that's how some DCU fans will take this video, so I might as well just run with it. I think a brief overview of Wonder Woman would be fantastic for those who haven't seen it since 2017 or those who just don't remember the plot. So you have Diana, and she's a child on the most lesbian-coded island to ever exist, Themyscira. You know these women would be driving Subarus if they had access to that technology. So Diana is secretly trained by the general of this island and is told the story of Ares. Ares is the god of war and hates humans. He looks at each human and sees the face of Doug Walker, and that just pisses him off. Ares kills a bunch of humans and gods, but Zeus is able to send him and his British mustache into a cave for exile. But this is just a story. You know, Ares doesn't actually exist, right? Right? So Diana gets trained, and then Steve Trevor, the most normal person to ever arrive to this island, crashes into Themyscira. Why, yes, Diana, I have invested in my 401k. Why yes, Diana, I did bring potato salad to the Themyscira cookout. Why yes, Diana, Dave really ticked me off at the office today. Steve is being chased by a bunch of Germans, the Subarus kill them, and then Diana's mentor dies. Ah, yes, a fellow hero's enjoyer. Nice work, Patty. Steve gets interrogated and the island learns about World War I. The movie also tells us that there's going to be a large fart released on the soldiers that'll be real stinky, and that is bad. Diana and Steve run off the island to go stop the war and get Dr. Poison some Gas X. Diana and Steve go to London, don't get permission from the government to stop the war, and then they recruit a team of the most useless characters I've seen in the inclusion of a comic book movie. I don't mean useless in terms of being helpful. I mean, they're not super helpful in the plot, but they really serve little story or thematic purpose. Well, they could have served a better thematic purpose, but someone let Patty Jenkins cook a little too hard in the kitchen. Imagine letting Air Bud attempt to make a souffle. That's the level of skill and precision that is on display here. Honestly, Air Bud probably could have done a better job with this movie. I don't think that's an apt comparison. We've got our team, we've got our generic action hero, and we've got Palestine's #1 op. They go through no man's land, then they go to a gala, and then they learn where the gas is being held. Some of that gas gets dropped on the village, and Diana is really sad about it. Holy shit, I think we learned how a hero is supposed to respond emotionally to a tragedy. The DCU has finally done it. Then we move to where the fart bombs are being loaded onto planes, so Diana is there to stop it by killing Ares. Steve sacrifices himself so the bombs won't hit London, and during this time Diana kills the general of the German army. She of course at this time realizes, wow, this guy isn't Ares. Ares never existed. People on their own can be capable of cruelty beyond imagine. Right? Right? Please, Patty, right? This is the worst thing about this film without question. Patty serves us her burnt grits and shows us that Ares was real and Diana was right all along. Diana and Ares fight. Ares says people are bad and stinky. Diana realizes, oh, people can be bad and stinky and make fart bombs, but also people can be good like Steve, because I guess that's the moral. She kills Ares and stops the war. She was right all along. Okay, here's the issue. I am one for judging movies by what they are attempting, not for what I want them to be. Watching the most recent Superman movie, I did not judge that like a normal comic book movie. James Gunn in that movie is attempting to format that film like an actual comic book in terms of story structure and characterization. That's why we don't get super in-depth character arcs for every single character that shows up, which is what would happen during a run of a comic. I would be doing a disservice to movie analysis if I attempted to judge Superman like I would Captain America the Winter Soldier. Wonder Woman attempts to structure itself with a standard hero's arc or like a traditional comic book movie. This is entirely okay. If I'm judging Wonder Woman based off that metric, it's entirely fine, like a 5 out of 10. Everything is perfectly serviceable and is not attempting to do much that is different than what we've seen before. Again, entirely fine. You don't need to and shouldn't be expected to reinvent the very nature of narrative structure with a comic book movie. However, Patty Jenkins attempts to appear different and interesting for 75% of this film. Patty Jenkins sets up the idea that Diana is naive about the way of the world. She also sets up the idea that Ares isn't actually real and that people can just be naturally cruel, self-serving, and awful. My read on this fabricated theme is that people are capable of unimaginable evils, and those unimaginable evils win only through inaction. I say fabricated because the first 75% of this movie is a big prank. We've got Patty Jenkins being a YouTube prankster during the height of social experiments. You know, maybe that's why she did this. Maybe that's why she throws a metaphorical pie into the face of the audience and blows raspberries at us. Why do I believe that the theme we are being tricked into believing is about evil, and evil only winning through inaction? This goes back to basic story structure. A somewhat common story cliche, and not a bad cliche either, is that heroes by the climax of the film learn they were wrong about the world, their perception of society, or an opinion that ties directly into the theme. This can also take the form of them not even realizing they were wrong, but just naturally changing their opinion. An example of this that I think most people would remember is Black Panther. Wakanda is an isolationist society, and that's something that T'Challa changes his mind about over the course of the movie. He initially rejects Killmonger's idea of liberating black people around the world through Wakanda's weapons. T'Challa then finds a middle ground of providing aid, assistance, and opening Wakanda up. This is him realizing that Wakanda being isolationist is wrong and that he needs to change Wakanda for the better. Now, Black Panther is not my favorite movie, but I think it has a clear example of this trope. We are set up with this same trope in Wonder Woman, but instead of it being an opinion or something along those lines that she changes her mind over, we're actually given a sort of meta idea that there's actually no villain, and Wonder Woman will eventually realize that. During the course of Black Panther, you realize that Wakanda being isolationist is wrong, and in Wonder Woman, we realize, oh, Ares probably doesn't exist. There are several ways in which the film makes you think Ares isn't real. The first is Diana being presented as the most naive person on the planet. Diana has no concept of worldly matters. Diana wants Steve to sleep next to her as they leave Themyscira, and she does not mean this in a sexual way. I, of course, would also be asking Chris Pine to sleep next to me on that boat, but for entirely different reasons. Diana walks around London with her sword, not realizing that's bad. Diana also doesn't realize she's wearing an inappropriate outfit for 1910s England. Diana, like a Minecraft YouTuber, hears the cry of a stranger's young child and sprints towards it. All of these different things paint a clear picture. Wonder Woman is a naive character that does not understand how the world works. If a character doesn't understand how the world works, through smart storytelling, you make them wisen up to the world around them. You do not confirm their naivety because that's not how character arcs work. If you let Diana be naive the entire film and say she's correct to be naive, you don't have a character arc. Nothing has changed. If in traditional storytelling, we as an audience are going to assume that Diana's naiveness is going to change, then we should subconsciously assume that Ares is not real because the naive character believes in them. This makes it so Diana really has no character arc during the film. She never believed that all men were corrupt, and that's the stance she takes during the climax of the film. The beginning of the movie Diana versus the end of the movie Diana feel very similar because nothing has been learned or gained. Our second reason why we believe that Ares is not real is because of how Steve Trevor treats the idea of Ares. Steve Trevor as a character is supposed to help guide the fish out of water, Diana, through the way of the world. This is pretty straightforward storytelling technique. In this way, he's supposed to help the naive character gain some world readiness, and in return, the naive character softens our mentor figure. Steve dismisses Ares as a non-real person. Because Steve is right in helping guide Diana in other aspects of her journey in this new world, such as not running up on strangers' babies, we should rightfully assume that he is correct in dismissing Diana's delusions of Ares. In the beginning of the movie, Diana is talking about Ares, and Steve mentions how the war is a big mess and there's not much one person can do about it. See, this is where I get the idea that the theme is cruelty can only be defeated through inaction. Steve should be right about Ares not existing, and that's what I thought when watching it. But when he says there's not much one person can do about unfettered evil, that I knew was wrong. That seemed to me where Diana would be right. Yes, she's wrong about Ares existing, but she still has the power to change this conflict, and anyone with courage and power can make a change against a remarkable evil. Isn't that a great theme? Isn't that what should have happened? Isn't that what it seemed like it was setting up? You can tell me if I'm crazy, but I have a feeling that this makes sense to a good chunk of you, and that you can see why Ares not existing seems believable. So I've established that Ares existing is what Patty was leading the audience to believe, and I've also established how she's done that. You may be asking, okay, why is it an issue if Ares is revealed to be real? Isn't it cool storytelling that this happens and the audience expectations were indeed subverted? No. Also, don't talk back to me. I'll pull out the belt. You have to be careful in subverting audience expectations. You can't make the audience feel like an idiot, nor can you subvert audience expectations by doing a classic cliche or trope. Here's the thing, when Patty Jenkins sets up the idea that Ares is not real, that's subverting the audience expectations on a meta level. We have seen comic book movies before. We know there's going to be a big CGI fight at the end of the movie. So when Patty tells us that Ares isn't real, that's a subversion of the entire comic book movie genre. I remember my initial reaction to this movie being, oh, surely Ares is real, this is a comic book movie. To over the course of the film going, oh my god, they're actually going to make him not real. This is going to be so effing cool. I believe Patty was going to subvert our expectations in an iconic and original way. She was going to do something that the audience did not expect. Think back to the major comic book movies of the last 15 years. I can count on one hand the amount of movies that mess with the classic trope of heroes fighting the big bad guy physically. And to an even more generalized trope, there is a big bad guy. Really, all that comes to mind is Thunderbolts, and I'm sure there are a couple others I'm not thinking of, but Thunderbolts is the one that sticks in my mind. Thunderbolts is pretty good. If you are feeling superhero fatigue, Thunderbolts is a partial cure. I do recommend it. So Wonder Woman came out in 2017, years before Thunderbolts, during the height of big CGI fight scenes. Patty Jenkins would be heralded as a revolutionary filmmaker if she stuck with her guns and actually subverted the genre of comic book movies as a whole. Patty subverting her subversion feels cheap. It feels like a cop-out. I would say the studio is to blame, but after seeing Wonder Woman 1984 and doing some research, I think Patty Jenkins might have effed this up all on her own. Apparently, Patty did not want the movie to end with a big CGI fight between Ares and Wonder Woman. This comes from direct interviews with Patty. However, in these same interviews, she mentions that she wanted Ares to be his original British mustache self. Her issue was with it being a fight and with him putting on the armor. If that's her issue, then she fundamentally misunderstands why the third act feels like a slap in the face to the rest of the movie. I don't care that there is a CGI fight at the end of the movie. That is a symptom of the bigger issue of Ares being a real character. If Ares is revealed to not exist and plays into the idea that Patty had developed for 75% of the movie, then the CGI fight just would not exist at all. It would be Wonder Woman versus the General. Her realizing that Ares did not create World War I, and then her having a moment of realization that she needs to take action in order to stop this cruelty and bloodshed. You can even have a nice action scene as she scrambles around the airfield trying to stop the bombs from going out. Additionally, the theme that we are given is not good. Patty Jenkins haphazardly presents the idea that people can be good and people can be bad. Oh my, wow, so powerful. We should show this movie to Russia and Ukraine. They would stop fighting immediately and Putin would start making out with Zelensky on horseback. going from the potential high-level idea of how cruelty exists in the world, and it is only through individual actions that we can defeat said cruelty, to people good and people bad, is such a slap in the face to the intelligence of the audience. People can understand and enjoy themes that are not simple. People just don't like it when higher level themes are done in a smug way, which Wonder Woman was not doing that before the reveal that Ares was real. Wonder Woman was feeling down to earth and natural. How we are shown this theme, which really hasn't been present in this story until this Ares reveal, is Ares puts Dr. Poison in front of Wonder Woman and tries to bait her to kill Dr. Poison. He basically tells Wonder Woman that Dr. Poison is representative of all humans and they deserve to die because of it. Wonder Woman, who has met at least one other person other than Dr. Poison, goes, I don't think everyone is as evil as her, and don't deserve to get farted on to death. Again, like I said before, we're going from this high-level idea of evil isn't some abstract concept that influences humans, it's something created by humans and has to be stopped by humans, to some people are really bad and some people are really good. This is awful. This just truly sucks and feels like Patty, Zach, or the studio think less of us as an audience. When I talked about Batman v Superman, I had issues with the execution, but more so the ideology behind it. How the movie was against criticizing power and how I thought that was a morally bankrupt theme. Here the issue isn't the ideology as much as it is the execution. There is a gold nugget of an idea sitting in a swamp of horrible execution. There is nothing morally wrong with the idea some people are good and some people are bad. Yeah, I believe Hitler was bad and Keanu Wholesome 100 Chungus Reeves is good. Honestly, with our current political climate and the rise of people saying they love Hitler, if Wonder Woman came out in 2025, I'd probably be 10 times less mean. It is a lame theme with how it's done here, and I bet it can be done in an interesting way, but Patty Jenkins does not do it. If you really want to go with this theme, Patty needed to make it more complex, less black and white and more gray. Every character besides Wonder Woman needed to have some evilness in them. That way the decision to not turn against humanity feels less easy and more earned. Wonder Woman needs to see everyone around her capable of cruelty, even those on the quote-unquote good side, even Steve Trevor. If Wonder Woman sees cruelty in everyone, her decision not to see humans as entirely corrupt, as Ares points out, feels more powerful and interesting. It adds some actual weight and thought behind her decision to spare Dr. Poison. We see her squad mates show selfish tendencies, but it just is not enough. Again, I think what I'm describing is what Patty was attempting to do, but she does not commit enough. Of course, I'd prefer if Ares didn't exist, but if you're gonna do this boring theme, don't half-bake it. If Ares did not exist, Wonder Woman would have been a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 movie with the super unique idea of the villain not existing. It also would have created a great theme, and evil can only win through an action, and everyone is capable of said evil. I think I've said all I've needed to say about the theme, but that is not the only issue here. The second biggest issue is the woman who has definitely fantasized about running through a brown child. I need everyone to look at this photo of her. They say pictures say 1,000 words, but I think this one says 10 to be exact. Maxwell Lord, I need you to give me the stone! Gal Gadot is one of the worst people to ever be allowed to perform in front of a camera. Yes, I'm counting Tommy Wiseau. Yes, I'm counting James Corden. Yes, I'm counting Robert Downey Jr., but only when he was forced to be Dr. Dolittle. I'm not even counting the controversies that Gal Gadot has involved herself in. I am truly just judging her performance here. Gal Gadot plays Diana like a woman that's never existed until the camera turns on. Gal Gadot does not show natural emotions. Every time she tries an emotion, it feels like an alien pressing the happy button inside their skin suit. I think my biggest issue with her performance is how stupid she plays Diana. You can do a fish out of water story where Wonder Woman has no sense of the world, but Gal Gadot plays her so dopey, Wonder Woman feels like a moron here. There are two different kinds of fish out of water stories that you can do. You can play it like Dory and make the character super stupid, or you can play it like Paddington and make it super fun. There is nothing wrong with the Dory method. It's great in Finding Nemo, but I would not do that for Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot is less Paddington and more Dory, and comes across as unintelligent and way too naive to make it believable. I would also attribute some of this to the writing, but Gal Gadot goes way too far with it for me to get on board with it. I think her being naive and not being with the world makes sense and is necessary for the movie to play out, but she needed to show some level of cultural awareness. My favorite Wonder Woman in other adaptations is wise, a leader, a warrior of strength, someone that can extend kindness to those that deserve it. I would say she has at least the other three character traits, but she is definitely not wise, at least not intentionally. Wonder Woman haphazardly falls into being wise with the Ares thing, and I refuse to believe that makes her smart. This Wonder Woman has absolutely no tact or subtlety in regards to the plot. Wonder Woman just bull rushes through every plot element and she really doesn't get punished for it. Wonder Woman is actually rewarded for bull rushing her way past everything and everyone with little wisdom because she gets to Ares super quick and is able to defeat him. I'm not super familiar with Wonder Woman in the comics, but I am familiar with her portrayals in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. She's such a strong and great character in those adaptations. This Wonder Woman feels very little like that animated version, and I could absolutely be wrong, but I'd have a strong feeling that the animated version is closer to the comics than this Wonder Woman. I have to ask the question before I get too off topic. Why is Gal Gadot Wonder Woman? In order to ask that question, we have to ask a different question. Has Gal Gadot ever gave a good performance? Let's take a dive into her filmography really briefly. Some of these movies I'm gonna have to trust what my friends tell me. I've done a lot of research for the video, but you would have to pay me an insane amount of money to watch every single Gal Gadot movie. Her breakout role comes from the Fast and Furious franchise, and my friend who's really into every single movie, like watched most of them when they came out theatrically, says she's largely bad in those movies. Her next major role was in BVS's Wonder Woman. I'd argue BVS Wonder Woman is probably her best performance in her career from what I've seen, and even that's not amazing. But honestly, she's okay in that movie. She's also in Ralph Breaks the Internet, she's not good in that movie. Red Notice and Death on the Nile, I haven't seen, and my friends also haven't, so maybe she really becomes the Nile or something, but we can't rate that honestly.
And enough champagne to fill the Nile. And enough champagne to fill the Nile.
Lastly, she's in Snow White, and my god, that is her worst performance by far. At one point, she even sounds like Scooby-Doo.
Are you against me too? Are you? Yes or no?
If you'd be interested in me doing a video on that trash, let me know. I honestly can't believe I wasted nearly 2 hours watching that. She is universally seen as being awful. She's become probably the most online dunked on actor of all time. However, this dickhead has landed herself a spot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. How has she gotten this successful? Did she make a deal with the devil? Did she suck the devil off? Did she go fast and furious on him in Dante's Inferno? Even Gal herself is shocked by her success, saying, quote, "I can't believe this happened to me. I have more luck than intelligence." You know, Gal, this might be the first time I've ever agreed with you. Did you know there's a rumor that she was almost Nebula in Guardians of the Galaxy? Gal said that Marvel offered her a role in 2013 that would have required her to shave her head. This was the same time that Guardians of the Galaxy was filming. She was also almost Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road. There is no way that woman still has a soul. I guarantee that the devil took it from her while they were getting freaky. It's not like she was particularly great in the Fast and Furious franchise from what my friend said, nor was she particularly popular after said movie came out. There is no legitimate reason why she's getting offered Nebula, Wonder Woman, and Furiosa. Gal Gadot's success just does not make sense. So we know she wasn't given Wonder Woman because she was a huge star. I even remember when her casting was announced when I was like 14 or 15, and I went, who? I was into movies and had a grasp on most moderate to major stars in Hollywood at this time. She's not talented, as we've established. Despite doing a bunch of research, I legitimately cannot answer the question of why this woman is Wonder Woman. My leading theory is still devil sex until someone can prove me otherwise. I think the final major issue I have with this movie is the action. There is one remarkable piece of action in this movie, and I think everyone can say it with me. The Ares fight. Huh. You've been pranked. I learned from my favorite movie director, Patty Jenkins, and found out that lying is a great way to connect with your audience. It is the no man's land scene. I will gush about this a tiny bit because it is unironically filmed fantastically. I love how the camera is used, and I actually love the music here, even though it doesn't feel like traditional action scene music. Wonder Woman is crossing no man's land out of kindness, out of a desire to help people and do good. So the music that plays is uplifting and nothing like her normal badass theme. I think this is why I have such frustrations with the DCEU. This scene is so remarkable you could build the entire movie and theme around it. If you don't want to go the Ares not existing route, make the movie about kindness and doing the right thing during times where evil surrounds you, where the odds are stacked against you. Steve in this scene talks about how they haven't made progress in this trench in a year, and with one moment Diana takes the other side's trench. She doesn't do this because war is awesome and I love violence and action. She does it so she can help out the nearby village. Again, these movies drip with potential, but the directors are so hell-bent on choking themselves out. The biggest issue I have with the action is how it is filmed. Action scenes are sped up and slowed down interchangeably, and that feels like the only way Patty knows how to film fight scenes here. It's not done better in Wonder Woman 1984, so I think this was her attempt at being quote-unquote unique. Unfortunately, every action scene sort of blends together because she uses this speed up and slow down process way too much. It feels very much like the crutch as someone that's never directed action before. Patty Jenkins was a TV director, so maybe she's filmed some low-level action, but never on the scale of a big-budget superhero movie before. Going from directing an episode of Arrested Development to doing a comic book movie is an absolutely insane leap, and I can honestly understand why she relies on the slow-motion speed-up effect. However, it just makes the action as a whole uninteresting. In conclusion, Wonder Woman is a bittersweet movie for me. On one hand, my imagination runs wild thinking of what could have been, thinking about the potential and what Patty had set up for us. On the other hand, I have to think of and review the product that we were given, and that product stinks. I'm sorry, and I assume there are a good chunk of people, not even DCU fans, that look back fondly on Wonder Woman. I would argue after digesting this movie and spending an insane amount of time thinking about it that it is worse than you remember, and if you take the time to rewatch Wonder Woman, you might just agree with me.
Imagine there's no heaven.
I hope you enjoy the video. If you're interested in this series continuing, please let me know. If I were to do another DCU video, the next would be Man of Steel or Aquaman. For those that are new and those that have been around forever, what kind of videos do you like from me? I'm always grateful to get feedback, so just let me know. Make sure to check out a video suggested in the end card, leave a like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and farewell.